Welcome back, everyone, to another electrifying episode of the Dungeons & Dragons experience. Last time, our adventurers faced off against a deadly hobgoblin ambush on the road to Sunhaven, barely escaping with their lives and holding on to a mysterious amulet that the enemy desperately wanted back. Now they finally arrived at the Grand Arcane Academy, searching for answers from the one and only Jordanius Pieterson. A scholar, sage, and quite possibly a guy who talks way too much.
Listen, Joe, I've met a lot of scholars, the best scholars, and let me tell you, they love me. They say, Donald, you know more about magic than the wizards do.
Well, let's hope he actually has some useful information. The last thing we need is a 2-hour monologue on philosophy when we just need answers.
Yeah, that's great. But, can we just get to the part where we figure out what's going on? I still got a bruise from that last fight. Those goblins didn't play nice.
Scrappy Joe, that's because you're slow. I handled them just fine. No goblins ever gotten the best of me, believe me.
I wasn't slow, Don. Look, it's hard to keep up when you're dodging arrows and trying not to trip on a tree root, all right?
Gentlemen, can we focus? We need answers, and we need them fast before we run into another ambush. The last thing we need is to be caught off guard.
I'll tell you what's going on, Harmonious. This academy, it's compromised. There's something deeper at play here. Unseen forces manipulating events. I bet half these wizards don't even know they're pawns in the grand game of interdimensional corruption.
Typical. They let anything in these days. No structure, no respect. You need someone like me to get in there and fix it. I'd have this academy running like clockwork in no time.
I don't know. I think they probably got some smart folks in there. Maybe they just need a little push in the right direction.
All right. We'll see if Jordanius has any answers. Or, at the very least, if he'll stop reading long enough to listen to you guys. Let's dive in. You push open the grand wooden doors of the Arcane Academy's inner sanctum, revealing a cluttered chamber dimly lit by floating candles. Books are stacked haphazardly from floor to ceiling. Papers with frenzied scribblings are strewn across the desks. A plate of half-eaten bread and cheese hovers in midair next to a steaming cup of tea. At the center of the room, an older man in worn scholarly robes mutters to himself, his face buried in an ancient tome titled On the Hierarchical Structures of Goblin Societies and Their Relation to the Arcane Balance of Power. Jordanius Pieterson does not acknowledge your presence. He flips a page, scratches out a note with his quill, then mutters something about unstable magical hierarchies and the impending entropy of planar order.
Look at this guy. Total mess. Classic scholar. They sit around all day, write some big words, and never actually fix anything.
Maybe he just needs a nudge. Jordanius? Sir? We need to talk.
Maybe he's real into his book. I don't know, but should we just start talking or?
No. The goblins wouldn't abandon the divine right of conquest unless there was a greater force disrupting their divine order. But who? Or what?
He flips another page, seemingly oblivious to you all standing there. His quill moves frantically across the parchment as he scrawls out incomprehensible theories.
To snap out of it, wizard. We've got critical intel here and you're too busy with your books to see it.
All right, let's see who can snap Jordanius out of his book-induced trance. Let's do a couple of skill checks here. You can try persuasion to appeal to his sense of reason, intimidation to shake him into reality, or arcana if you think you can actually engage him with his own obsession. Pick your approach.
All right, I'm rolling persuasion. The Donald knows how to talk to people, the best people. Let's see, that's a 6.
Jordanius barely acknowledges Donald, mumbling about planar instability and waving a dismissive hand.
Okay, I'll try arcana. Maybe if I talk about magic and stuff, he'll pay attention. Let me roll 10.
Jordanius pauses for a split second at the mention of magic, but quickly resumes scribbling.
Enough. Time to bring the hammer down. Rolling intimidation. 18, baby.
Thucks. Fist crashes onto the desk, shaking the entire room. A stack of books teeters and collapses to the ground. Jordanius jumps up, eyes wide, gripping his quill as if it were a dagger.
By the weave, What kind of brute force buffoonery is this?
The kind that gets your attention, old man. We don't have time for you to monologue about goblin social ladders. We need answers. Now!
Jordanius scowls, but he adjusts his robes and exhales as if suddenly realizing he has company.
Ah, visitors. Yes, well, state your business quickly. I'm in the middle of unraveling what may very well be a critical moment in the balance of our reality.
That's great, really great. But listen, we're not here for a history lesson. We found something big.
Yeah. We found this thing, see? This, necklace, amulet, whatever.
The room falls quiet as Jordanius stares at the amulet, his expression shifting from curiosity to deep concern. He slowly sets his quill down, rubbing his temples as if warding off a headache.
Oh, well, that's not good.
Jordanius narrows his eyes at the amulet.
What in the name of the weave is this?
He snatches the amulet from Scrappy Joe's hands with a swiftness unexpected for an old scholar, turning it over rapidly in his fingers. His lips press into a thin line as he studies the engravings, eyes darting over every inch of the artifact.
Where did you get this? No, wait. Before you answer, look at these etchings here.
He holds the amulet up to a nearby candlelight, casting twisted shadows across the walls. His voice takes on an increasingly uneasy tone.
This is old magic, corrupting magic. These runes, they aren't just symbols, they're warnings. See this pattern?
We found it on a goblin chieftain. He and his tribe had started attacking settlements unprovoked. After we put him down, we found this in his hut.
And then get this, a hobgoblin jumps us on the road, right out of nowhere, very sneaky, very desperate. He wanted this thing back badly, almost like someone sent him.
That explains it. That explains far too much. This is not Maglubiet's mark. No, this is something much older.
He exhales sharply and flips open an ancient tome, fingers running down the brittle pages until he stops on a specific entry. He tilts the book to show the group an inked sigil nearly identical to the one on the amulet.
This symbol, you see it? This doesn't belong to Maglubiet. Goblins, by their very nature, serve order. A cruel and tyrannical order, but an order nonetheless. Maglubiet demands conquest, strategy, and servitude. But this does not seek conquest. This is dissolution. This is unraveling.
You're saying these goblins stopped serving their war god, they turned to something else? Something worse?
That's precisely what I am saying. The being this amulet is tied to is not a conqueror. It does not seek to rule.
But who is it?
Some call it the Unmaker. Others, the Ever-Writhing. A force of pure dissolution. Maglubiet enforces hierarchy, but this entity, it erodes everything. Structure, belief, reality itself.
All right, folks, sounds like a knowledge check opportunity. If anyone wants to roll history or religion, now's the time.
All right, let's, see what old Scrappy Joe knows. Rolling. Oh, a natural 18 plus my modifier. That's a 21.
All right, Scrappy Joe, despite your usual memory inconsistencies, something stirs deep in your mind. A story you once heard in passing.
Wait. Yeah, I heard something about this back in Scranton. Well, maybe not Scranton, but somewhere I remember hearing about an empire way back that got obsessed with something just like this.
That sounds eerily familiar. I think I recall something too. Let me roll a 16.
You recall a fragmented historical record, whispers of a civilization that built wonders and then inexplicably let them collapse. Not through war, not through conquest, but by willingly casting aside their own reality. Entire cities became ruins overnight.
It's more than just old magic. It's history repeating itself.
So let me get this straight. We're dealing with a god that doesn't even want power. It just wants to break things?
That is exactly right.
We need to find out who's behind this. Someone is pushing this corruption forward. The goblins didn't just stumble upon this. They were led to it.
And with that, the pieces start falling into place. The goblin attacks, the ambush, the amulet. Something greater is stirring. But the question remains, what will you do next?
The Academy, brilliant minds, all of them, but they have become reckless. They push for progress without understanding what they are meddling with.
What do you mean reckless? Are we talking about theoretical experiments? Or is this the kind of progress that ends with a crater where the library used to be?
Both. They have been dismantling old wards, opening avenues of study that were once forbidden. We must challenge archaic restrictions, they say. But those restrictions existed for a reason.
Listen, I know all about restrictions. Some are good, great, even the best restrictions. But some, useless, a total disaster. How do we know they weren't just scared of a little competition?
Because, Donald, when previous scholars ignored those restrictions, it usually ended with an abomination that had too many eyes or the fabric of space-time unspooling like a cheap tunic.
They're letting the corruption in, just like I thought. I knew it. This is how it starts. First, they break the old magical safeguards. Next thing you know, you've got interdimensional horrors walking around, shaking hands with politicians.
Didn't we just see a guy juggling fireballs in the street? Maybe that's part of the same thing? I mean, juggling's fine, but what if it's, symbolic?
Exactly. Once you let one juggler inside your walls, next thing you know, there's a whole circus moving in, and then boom, an entire city on fire. Total chaos.
This isn't about jugglers. This is about unchecked magical arrogance.
So you're saying the Academy is making changes without considering the consequences?
Look at this. Studies on planar thinning. They think they can optimize magic flow by stripping away unnecessary protections. But do you know what happens when you remove too many barriers? You don't get efficiency, you get collapse, chaos.
That's exactly what they want. The corruption is seeping in bit by bit. I bet some of those mages are already compromised. Replaced. Probably got eldritch parasites in their brains.
We sure about the brain parasites thing? Because I once knew this guy back in Scranton who swore his neighbor had a tapeworm controlling his thoughts. Turned out, the guy just really liked eating raw steak. No mind control, just bad dietary choices.
God's help me.
All right, so let's get serious here. What exactly do you think is going to happen if the Academy keeps tampering with these safeguards?
I know. If this continues, it will open pathways for forces beyond our comprehension, creatures that exist outside of time, entities that thrive on chaos, corruption that doesn't just spread, it unmakes. And this amulet, it might be proof that it's already begun.
Jordanius spreads a large, ancient map across the table, tapping a remote location with his ink-stained finger.
There's a ruined temple deep in the wilderness. I believe it to be one of the first sites where this cult originated.
So what you're saying is we go there, we fix this, we win? Sounds easy.
Easy? No. Predictable? Even less so. If that amulet is a key, then the door may already be opening.
This is it. I knew it. They're already inside. The moment we step foot in that temple, we're going to be knee-deep in interdimensional horrors trying to replace us with copies of ourselves.
Wait, copies? You mean like, a clone? I had a buddy back in Scranton who swore he had an evil twin once. Turned out he was just looking in the mirror at night with the lights off.
Fascinating story, Joe. Really adds to the conversation.
Listen, nobody's better at taking down secret temples than me. I know all about them. The best temples, ruined, thriving, doesn't matter. I've seen them all, and let me tell you, this one, it's gonna be a mess. Total disaster.
Yes, well, that's why I'm advising caution. The temple wasn't just abandoned, it was sealed. Something in there was meant to stay in there. And you may be the ones forced to deal with it if it has already begun to wake.
That's what they want you to think. Seal doesn't mean safe. It means they just didn't have the guts to finish the job. We have to go in there ready to shut this whole thing down, or we're looking at the biggest catastrophe since the last time they experimented with dark magic.
So, just so I got this straight, do we want to open the door, or should we, board it up more? Maybe put some, big rocks in front of it?
Joe, we don't put rocks in front of things. We go in, we handle it, and we win. Tremendously. That's the plan.
How much do we actually know about what's inside?
He pauses, his brow furrowing as he reads a faded line of text, then mutters under his breath.
What is it?
A warning.
Good. That means we're going in the right direction.
What kind of warning are we talking about here? Like watch your step kind of warning? Or more of a, if you go in, your soul gets eaten by an unspeakable horror type deal?
It says, to those who seek what lies beneath, heed this final plea. The hands that unbind shall be the first to burn.
I knew it. Classic cryptic cultist messaging. You don't warn people about something unless you want them to ignore the warning. This is a trap. A big, magical, ancient trap.
Look, warnings are for people who don't know what they're doing. We're winners. We don't get burned. We make the other guy get burned. That's just how it works.
And there's no way to figure out what exactly we're dealing with before we go waltzing in there. No old scrolls, no secret historical records.
Not unless you have a few weeks to cross-reference ancient texts that may or may not have been written by insane hermits.
And with that, the weight of Jordanius' words settles over you all. What once seemed like a dangerous artifact now feels like a piece of a much larger, darker puzzle. The discussion in Jordanius' study winds down, the weight of the task ahead settling on each of you. The ruined temple awaits, and with it, whatever secrets or horrors lie within. Outside, the sun has set over Sunhaven, the warm glow of lanterns flickering along the winding streets. The Academy's halls grow quieter as scholars retreat to their chambers, leaving you all to decide your next steps.
All right, let's figure this out. We've got a temple full of unknown dangers, an amulet that may or may not be waking something up, and not a whole lot of details on what we're actually facing.
Look, we go in, we handle it, and we win. It's what we do. But I'll tell you this. If we're going into some ancient mess, we need to do it the smart way. Tactical. Tremendous. Maybe we set up a base camp nearby. Scout it out first. Nobody's better at making a plan than me.
Oh, yeah. That sounds good. We definitely don't want to get caught off guard. And I'd like to grab some snacks for the road. Just in case, we get stuck in there for a while.
Snacks? Snacks! We're preparing for battle against eldritch forces of chaos, Joe? And you're worried about packing a lunch?
Look, man, I get cranky when I'm hungry.
All right. No one's dying of hunger on my watch. But Donald has a point. Scouting the place before we charge in might not be the worst idea.
A wise move. There may be lingering enchantments, wards, or worse. And if this cult left behind any traces, you'll want to be prepared.
Outside, the city hums with life despite the growing night. The group stands outside the Academy's entrance, the cobbled streets stretching towards Sunhaven's various districts. The marketplace, bustling even at this hour, promises supplies. The local taverns and guild halls may offer rumors of the ruins. There's time to prepare, but not much.
So what's the move? Supplies first, intel, or do we just head straight there? We don't want to give whatever is in there too much time to get ready for us.
I'd like to at least talk to someone who knows the region. Maybe they've seen something unusual. Ancient ruins tend to attract attention.
And snacks?
Fine. Get your snacks, Joe. But I swear, if I hear one crunch while we're sneaking into a cursed ruin...
This whole thing reminds me of those ancient civilizations that just vanished. Like one day they're building pyramids or whatever, and the next, boom, gone. Jamie, pull up something on the Younger Dryas impact theory. You guys ever hear about this?
Sounds made up. Probably some bad science. If a civilization was that advanced, they wouldn't have gotten wiped out. I would have seen it coming, believe me.
Was that the one with, the mammoths and stuff? Ice Age? I remember reading about that, maybe. It was with the squirrel.
It's an interesting theory, but it's just a theory.
Exactly. They were messing with things they weren't supposed to. Forbidden knowledge, hidden power structures, it's all connected. And now here we are, about to walk into another lost civilization's tomb, like we're in some cheap adventure novel.
Right? That's what I'm saying. We've got this ancient temple sealed up for who knows how long, and you're all just supposed to waltz in there and act like everything's fine. You ever see a horror movie? This is how people get turned into statues or their arms ripped out of their sockets by some giant ape. You ever seen that video of the monkey that rips that guy's hair off? Hey, Jamie.
Please don't.
All right, that's a good place to call it for tonight. You guys have some solid plans. Whether or not you stick to them is a whole other question.
Oh, wait, so we're actually stopping? I was just getting warmed up.
This is exactly how they do it. They let you get deep, then boom, session ends before we get to the real secrets.
Look, I get it. Nobody likes stopping when we're winning, but we're coming back stronger. Believe me. Bigger, better. Nobody's seen a comeback like what we're about to do.
I'd just like to not get turned into stone, personally.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. All right, everyone. Great session, Jamie. Remind me to look up more on this impact theory for next time. I know there's something there. And with that, we'll pause here. Next session, we'll see what supplies you gather and what leads, if any, you uncover. Make sure you're ready. Something tells me you want every advantage you can get.
All right, listen. You have to understand something fundamental here. When you step into the unknown, when you engage with the chaotic forces beyond the veil, you're not just confronting an external danger. No. You're standing at the precipice of order and chaos itself. And let me tell you, it's not something to take lightly. And if you're going to navigate that domain properly, if you're going to equip yourself with the proper tools to bring order to the chaos, you must seek out knowledge. You must expose yourself to structured, articulate discourse. And frankly, there's no better place to do that than Brayton's YouTube channel. Because, look, if you don't engage with material that expands your understanding, you risk being swept away by malevolent forces. You think you can just waltz into an ancient ruin with no preparation. You think you can just face the unknown without fortifying yourself intellectually. That's preposterous. So go. Subscribe, watch, absorb the wisdom. Otherwise, you'll find yourself in a very dark place, metaphorically and literally. And, well, that's just not good. Go clean your room.